Just a heads up before we get into the following video. Just before recording this, I had received some very bad news and was going through a period of grief and loss. So while the information may be good, the delivery may not be up to the quality that you're used to. And even as I'm recording this introduction, I'm still dealing with that pain of loss. But once I'm done dealing with the personal issues that are going on in my life currently, I will be back providing you the commentary and information that you have come to enjoy. Until then, enjoy the following video. Welcome back to another episode where we take a deeper dive examining the culture of violence of the left. This is one of those episodes where it's more of a conversation, so it's not going to be highly edited, and it's also why I'm on camera versus using the avatar. And as I was thinking about this, the culture of violence of the left, there was a video that I had seen that really got me thinking about why it is we need to take a deeper examination. And here's that video.
The person who doesn't want gun control keeps getting shot at.
Yeah, but the ones that want gun control keep doing all the shooting. Ain't that right? Ain't that right?
And that is a good point. You notice that the people who are constantly calling for gun control are the ones using the guns to try and kill their political opponent. And part of that is because they want more defenseless people in order to go at people who can't defend themselves so that the left can use violence even further to try and push their radical ideology. But where did they get this idea that violence is the means by which you achieve your political goals? Where is it that they get to the point where they believe that debate is pointless and that you either agree or die? Well, we started taking a look at that at the last time we were having a conversation here, where we were talking about how those in elected office are constantly calling for physical violence against their political opponents. We talked about their social influencers that are going out there talking about how, Republicans are not afraid of violence or getting hurt, and that you must go out there and attack them to make them afraid so that they just shut up and stop talking. We've taken a look at how people on the media and the mainstream media have gone out there and directly called for violence and assassination. And of course, as they do so, they tried to downplay, oh, that was a metaphor, or, which I'm not sure how saying someone really needs to go out and shoot this person is really a metaphor. I'm not understanding how that is possible. But do you think they would be able to get away with going on, social media, going on cable news, or standing from, a platform during a political rally, calling for violence and getting people to cheer for them? Do you think they could get away with that if those people were not already primed and prepped to cheer on political violence? So we can go through and talk about Maxine Waters, calling for political violence. We can go through the whole litany from Trump's first term to today of everything that those in public office, the media, and all that have said. But that's only the surface level. That is trying to catch it at the end. We need to really nip this in the butt by going back to the beginning of where it is they're being told violence is okay. And as we go through this, I want you to keep in mind of a video that I did a couple years ago now about ideological subversion. And in case you forgot what that is, here is a brief overview. Now, while I can't pronounce his name, he did give insights into what ideological subversion was and how the Soviet Union was engaged in that. And the stages were demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. Basically, you start off in the school system, and there's a reason for that. But you start off in the school system teaching the children to hate their own country and to want the country or embrace the ideology of their foreign adversaries. Then you got the destabilization, going after the economy, destroying foreign relations, and so forth. Then you create crisis. violent changes of power, structure, and economy. You go through and create economic crises. You go out there and engage in mass violence that shocks the culture. Then there's the attempts to normalize the violence, to downplay it, but also to let your foot off of the accelerator for a bit, let things kind of calm down, let people get used to the new way of things. And then, as people have calmed down and accepted the new reality of violence, you push forward to ever increasing levels of violence, all until you get to the point where you have completely overturned the entire culture. And this was really interesting. And it's something that didn't get a lot of attention back in the 1980s, but he did already state that it takes about 4 generations for it to be completed. And that at that time, there was already 1 or 2 generations in which ideological subversion had already been taking place. And you can see that over time, it just gets worse and worse. And this is where we get to the point where we do see, headlines such as this. New York teacher celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, that Ukrainian refugee that was killed and stabbed to death on the bus. But think about this. How did we get to that point? Well, let's take a look at some of these other items here. The high school teachers say telling students to behave in class is white supremacy. So they're taught to not behave themselves. Okay. Then, of course, we have the issue of LGBTQIA+, which it's bad enough that you're giving students the books that are basically pornographic in nature. But these books also have this idea, this theme, in a lot of cases where if you don't accept the transgenderism ideology, that is somehow immoral, violence, that you are, committing acts of aggression against them. That's kind of where they're trying to go with this in these books and trying to push that idea. Then you have up here, dismantling white supremacy includes ending racist tests like the SATs and the ACTs. Wow. So they're trying to lower education, get rid of standardized tests, and you can't measure what the students have learned. And if you're not measuring what the students have learned, well, then that creates a situation where you're not really paying attention to what the students are learning. And that means they can get away with saying anything they want. And then you got the racist beginnings of standardized tests. You see how the left has been attacking the education system to remove education and replace it with political indoctrination. Then you have videos that were shown about the unequal opportunity race, which is a propaganda video that uses, a grain of truth from a historical context, but then goes off and lies from there. Then remember this article from a while ago from Blaze Media. Video teaches that all whites are racist and minorities can't be racist. Once again, creating that double standard. You have here in the public school systems that a sign saying that Republicans equal Nazis or Nazis equal Republicans was posted, and there was some outrage, but this is in the school. Or how about this, another flyer that was in a school system displayed in North Carolina, where they say "Make America Great Again" is just covert white supremacy. Now that dehumanization, that constant, your enemies are absolutely evil, they're an existential threat, anybody who disagrees with you is the next Adolf Hitler. Even with all of that, that's only half. That's only half of the problem. That's only half of the issue of why the left has become so violent. You can hate someone. You can go out there and think that they're a horrible person, but that doesn't mean that you're going to commit acts of violence against them. So in order to get them to that point, to that culture where violence and murder is acceptable, they have to ingrain it in their minds at the earliest stage, at the earliest age possible. And the left does this. and they do it through the public school system. It's out there in plain sight. We've been debating it, but we haven't been going through and really connecting the dots between this item, along with the dehumanization and demonization of political opponents, and the escalating frequency of the left wing violence, of left wing terrorism. And here it is. And the issue I'm talking about is abortion. Now, while we on the right understand that abortion is wrong because it is a taking of the life, let's take a look at how it's being viewed by the left, where it's even being promoted in school as the ABCs of Women's Month, where A is for abortion. I mean, this is really sickening, but you start understanding where the culture of violence comes from, because what is abortion? It is murder. But what do they do and how they talk about abortion? They call it health care. So according to the left, they're not out there engaging in political violence against their opponents. They're out there trying to provide them with free health care. That is kind of the sick, twisted belief that the left is engaged in. But also, when you go through and you take a look at what abortion does, why it is they're so about abortion, is because it's all about training people that murder is okay. And they do this by their arguments when they go out there and they say, well, people need abortion because they can't afford to take care of the baby. Or this baby, they're not in a position to be able to take care of them. It would be a drag on their life, yada, yada, yada. Basically, if the person is inconvenient towards you getting what you want, kill it. If the person is going to be an obstacle, or you believe that they are going to prevent you from being able to achieve your financial goals, kill it. And they go off, and that is their rationalization. It's all the selfish me, 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 me. Now, sometimes they try to rationalize it, by talking about rape or, the life of the mother. And yet when you do a deeper dive, you realize, hey, those arguments don't actually hold up. At least not if you're being consistent and moral. But they are trained like this. They are trained to think that killing is okay. And they're trained to think about that even about babies. So if they're thinking that a baby is perfectly fine for them to kill, and that that's healthcare, that is something to be celebrated, how much more are they going to believe that it's okay to kill and murder and violently attack people that they are being told and have been raised to believe are Nazis, are going to be the next Adolf Hitler? It's that permission structure. And that is why you get news stories such as this.
Virginia, 45 schools had walkouts in support of abortion access. The student-led movement included demonstrations to demand federal and state measures to codify Roe versus Wade, including the certification of the Equal Rights Amendment in the Constitution. Now, over 1,000 students participated in that walkout, with others supporting the event by wearing the color green. State police investigate allegations that Fairfax County public school staff may have helped students get abortions without their parents' knowledge.
Now, it is questionable whether or not these walkouts really were student-led, or if they were organized by the school itself and just using the students as a means to try and go through and say, hey, it's their First Amendment. Oh no, we're not actually using taxpayer dollars for this. But when you go through and you think about the left and how they act, they will go to the ends of the earth, violently attacking federal officials in order to protect illegal immigrants, including those who are violent, including those that would rape women. But they will violently attack federal troops in defense of them. And on the other side, they will go out there and they will be violent, but they will also go to the ends of the earth in order to protect their right to kill babies. So they want to protect illegal immigrants while having the ability to kill babies. That is the left. Make that make sense. But it even goes as far as some school systems having, covered up for the fact that teachers will help students get to an abortion clinic, get an abortion without the teacher's knowledge. Just like they'll go through and try and hide from the parents the school is transitioning their children in certain states. In fact, California even passed a law that says, no, we don't have to tell the parents. We can just lie to them. We don't have to disclose anything about what we're doing with their kids, as these teachers go off and basically say point blank that they view the children as theirs, not yours, not you, the parents, not you that, gave birth to the kids, not you that, the kids come from. You're not the parents. You have no say. It's the teachers and the school system. And so that's where we're at today. That is where we get to how the left is the violent people that they are, is because they're not just dehumanizing and demonizing their political opponents. They're also training right from the get-go that murder is okay. That murder is, something to be celebrated and sanctioned, that you can call it healthcare, that you can say, hey, if this, little thing here is going to be an inconvenient to me, it's okay to wipe them out. And when you combine those two things, the culture that celebrates death and murder with the constant dehumanization of their political opponents, that is where you're getting rise to the ever-increasing violence of the left and the frequency at which they are engaged in that violence. And it is really horrifying where this is going. And it also explains why they go out there and they, in protest, support murderous regimes, or go out there and support terrorists, the Free Palestine movement. They want to go out there and always side with the worst of the worst people and claim that they are somehow on a moral high ground. I don't know whether you want to call it brainwashing. I think we're well past brainwashing at this point, and I'm not really sure that the terminology really matters. But what we need to do here, if we want to stop the violence, is we need to fix the public school systems. So what does that look like? Well, while in some public school systems, it's dominated in areas by the left, right? And so even if you run for school board and so forth, you may not have a chance at winning. But even at that, a lot of those, heavily blue school districts are located in states that are controlled by the Republicans in the legislatures and the governor's office. So you want to start off here by writing your legislature, your elected representatives at your state, and get them to enact legislation that will prevent the promotion of abortion in school. That will enforce laws that require that the schools remain politically neutral, that there has to be some sort of review of the textbooks to make sure that they're not filled with a bunch of political indoctrination and false narratives. It's all about going back into the public school system, but it should also include legislation that requires a balance of political ideology. No more can it be that every single teacher is of one political side. And some subjects should be taught by people of different ideological backgrounds. So like history, political science, and social studies should be taught by two teachers, at least with one of them being conservative, and being able to have equal time and equal ability to go through and present the viewpoints, and the facts of the situation. Then, of course, after you go through and take a look at enacting all this legislation to reform the public school systems, you do need to actually be involved in the public schools. That means running for the school board, for elected position in the school board. And look, I understand that some of you can't do it for various reasons. There's a lot of jobs out there that say, hey, if you run for any type of public office, you can't hold a job here. I understand that. But for those of you where that is not a prohibition, you need to be running for the public schools and try to go for the school board positions so that you can have more direct control over the schools. Then, of course, you need to be showing up at school board meetings and making sure that you get the concerns out there, you expose the schools, let it be known what it is the schools are doing. And you also need to be making sure that, conservatives, teachers get in. Now, of course, they'll try and filter them out of the hiring practice. They'll quickly fire conservative teachers. So that's where we go back to legislation. Because unless we go through and we take back the schools from the left, this culture of violence is only going to continue. They're only going to go further and further to violent extremes because that's what they're being pushed. Because each generation of teachers are have been taught to be more violent and radical and promote more violent and radical ideas than the previous generation. And then they take that even further as they're teaching the next generation, and so on and so forth. So even when we go to start taking back the public school system, it's not going to be an immediate result. And luckily, it's not all schools. I get that. I know I can't make the blanket statement that it's all schools. So that's why there is not always this, across the board, allegiance to left-wing ideology and violence. And it is a lot of the things that the left has done that has turned the youth away, right? Which is a good start, for us on the conservative side. But now we need to start taking back the schools and being aggressive politically about taking back the schools if we are to save the future and to capitalize on this trend. And on that note, I would want to say, that we need to make sure that we are careful not to make the mistakes of the left, that as the culture shifts and changes, not to get complacent, not to take it for advantage, right? To go through and actually stay true to the values and morals, but more importantly, making sure that we listen and that we pay attention to what's going on and to those that the elected representatives are elected to represent. All right, so that's it for this episode as we go through and take a look, diving deeper and deeper to the violence of the left, and not just focusing on the surface level and not just focusing on each isolated event, but as we take a more holistic view and approach to understanding how we got from where we were to the left being filled with a bunch of terrorists who out there violently attacking. All right, there will be more episodes to come in the future where I will be on camera as well having this conversation. And again, there will be more episodes where it's just the avatar on there because that allows me to get more content out to you. So I want you to reflect on this, leave comments down below. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.